I heard that the Salvation Army and Goodwill and other charitable organizations are really having a great season for donations. I've heard that the donations have gone up overall about 15%, 15 to 20%. And it's always hard to analyze trends like this, unless, of course, you go around and you interview every separate organization. But some cultural commentators think that this trend might have something to do with a powerful Japanese industry by the name of Marie Kondo, who has built an empire from her skills as a master of tidying up. I remember when Kondo's book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, some of you own it, I'm sure, hit the bestseller list several years ago, and it seemed after that everyone I knew was talking about KonMarieing, which is the verb for doing her method, KonMarieing their bedrooms or their study or their living rooms, their closets, their garages. In the KonMarie method, you go through your house or apartment and you deal with all of your possessions category by category, rather than room by room, which is interesting. And I just want to say that those of you who have a lingering feeling of guilt and shame for never having gone into that attic or that garage or that basement, this method might speak to you. So who knows, we might get something positive out of this information. So the categories are clothes, books, papers, komono, which is just miscellaneous items, as not kimono, which is the garment, so don't confuse those, komono. And then the fifth category is sentimental items. So it's very broad. So what you do is you get everything that is in that category together in one place, like in a big heap, and then you hold each item and you commune with it, really. And you see if it has any charge for you, or in the English translation of Kondo's book, if it sparks joy. Now, if it doesn't spark joy, you're to give it away, or throw it away, or repurpose it. I think this is a wonderful way to declutter and bring some order and tranquility back to our living spaces that may feel like they're getting out of hand. I'm in favor of it. I have no arguments with Marie Kondo, except for when she suggested that people have no more than 30 books. There was a lot of controversy around that when I was like, what? My books are darling and dear to me. Like, how dare you? But Kondo's method is deeply informed by her Japanese Shinto tradition, by involvement with Shintoism. And the symbol, by the way, for Shintoism is right there on our window. This is an indigenous Japanese religion that teaches that everything in nature has a soul essence of its own. So it's no accident that Kondo's work uses the language of magic, because Shintoism also involves shamanism and active engagements with gods and spirits in the spirit world. So you take your things category by category, and you hold on to them for a moment, and you feel those memories and associations you have with them. I've seen videos of people doing the KonMari method in their rooms and homes, and I'm not surprised by how often tears come to people as they're given permission to have feelings about their possessions, even though they feel that those possessions, the proliferation of them, is burdening them and making their lives unmanageable. Because everything in our lives does have an association. It may be a positive one. It may be a complicated one. It may be, in fact, that we are holding on to some items that actually resonate with grief or pain, but they keep us connected to someone or something that we've lost but are just not ready to let go of yet, and that's okay. This is really deep work, actually. It's not just the usual sort of, oh, I'm going through things, sort and toss and sort and toss. And if you've seen the show Hoarders, and if you know anyone with a hoarding disorder, you understand that these items feel very important to people emotionally, even though intellectually they see that they should be able to release them, throw them out, etc. I think about the work that the church history team here is doing. And they're down in our basement, and it's very much the same. Each thing is honored. Nothing is automatically, presumed to be worthless. It's examined in the context of what it means to us today, and also what it might have meant to our ancestor spirits. So you see how we're doing that kind of ancestor worship ourselves. One person's curious chunk of rock may be another person's sacred relic. So after the holding and the connecting to whatever item it is, and discerning whether or not it sparks joy, the person is instructed to thank the object before relegating it to the keep, toss, or give away pile. And oh my gosh, I love this. This is an incredible spiritual practice. Can you imagine doing it in general? Just thanking things as you touch them, as you go throughout your day, thanking the gas pump for filling your car and letting you get around. Or, obviously we say grace, many of us before a meal, just like thanking the food, thanking the car for getting you places. I don't know why I'm doing like all this car imagery, thanking the shampoo. There's just, what a beautiful way to live life, instead of like, oh, that's not working, oh, that's not fasting enough, oh, that's not new enough, oh, I can get a better model. If I follow Shinto reasoning, I would say that, maybe all that frustration I'm putting into my phone for being glitchy, maybe I don't know, is that affecting the technology? We don't know. I don't know. Force fields, dimensions. You're all wondering, is she okay? No, I really think so. All right, just fully admit it. I admit that when I think bad thoughts about my car, I worry that it will feel it personally and break down. I'm just going to admit that. It's very superstitious. But I've been thinking about Marie Kondo's process in the context of institutions too. How would we, adapt some of that mentality into institutions? And gee, you know what? We've been kind of doing a Marie Kondo of our church at UUCGL in probably at least 5 years. And I've been thinking about how any community of people unclutter and tidy their lives together, and how painful that process can be, trying to decide as a group, what do we hold on to, what sparks joy, what do we let go of? And I want to respect the pain and agony that the United Methodist Church has experienced in the past week. It needs to be noted, at their general conference, they have been in conversation for years about honoring the call to ministry that that gay and lesbian and transgender people have. And they met as a conference, and their delegates, about half of whom are clergy and half of whom are lay people, decided not to allow LGBTQ clergy to serve, and also not to allow their Methodist clergy to officiate at same-sex marriages. So this conversation has been going on for years. People have been doing a lot of conversation and work together, and this was a devastating and regressive decision. And the reverberations of this heartbreaking decision have been felt throughout the wider religious community, where we have been sharing a spirit of heartbreak and lamentation with our United Methodist friends. It's rare in any community for there to be total unanimity about what needs to be kept and what needs to be released. but I want to say for the record that Unitarian Universalists stand in solidarity with those Methodists who are involved in this struggle and who have crucial decisions to make about how to continue the conversation or to split the denomination, and also individually to decide whether or not they can stay in the United Methodist Church that they love. We pray for peace and strength among them in the certain faith that God does not distinguish between human beings based on their gender or sexual expression, and that neither should the people of God who profess to live by the commandments of love do so. So I just wanted to go on record about that. It has been a very, very difficult time among the clergy in general as we watch this. So here we are in our own church, marching in the light of God in these times that have often felt dark and threatening. We're marching in the light, and we're trying to bring to light our own calling, our own mission in this time. So how can we be a fresh, welcoming, inspiring, and strengthening community and place in what feels like dark times? How can we be a place that helps people move out of a cluttered inner life to get tranquility, peace, and a serene, grounded sense of what they're meant to do with their lives? So we've been tidying up, you could say. And as I said, this tidying began about 5 years ago, I would say, when all the church leaders and I put a lot of our life, our church life, into categories in the middle of the room, and we looked at it all. We looked at governance structure. We looked at our programs. We looked at our staffing. We looked at the way we use our building. We looked at our money, our finances. We looked at our mission. And we began to say, oh, okay, you know what? We need to make more room here. And this we're going to move out here. And this we're going to reuse and recycle and repurpose. And this we're going to keep in storage because we might need it later. Well, we didn't ask ourselves, does this spark joy? But we could have. And again, I was thinking about that, and what I was thrilled to find is that that phrase, spark joy, is a kind of shallow interpretation of the original Japanese term that Marie Kondo used in her first version of the book, which she wrote in Japanese. And the word is tokimeku. And the translation, spark joy, is like a little bit just like a catchphrase, but the real essence of the word tokimeku isn't just spark joy, but it can be translated as heart fluttering, throbbing, palpitating, pulsating, and beat fast. So what it really means more is something that has a charge, it has energy to it. You pick it up and it goes, whoa, that matters, it's important, there's something really important there. So it doesn't always have to be happy. It doesn't have to be joyful. It can be like, oh, wow. And we do feel that a lot when we meet in groups, when we meet in ministry teams, when the board meets. You wonder how I can keep going to board meetings after about 250 of them in my life in ministry. It's because of that moment. It's the moment of tokimeku, when the leaders are working through an agenda, and we go like, zing, that matters. We better stay there. And we better look at all of it and sort through it. Sometimes we have to make some space so that it can live. It's infectious, and it's true in the Marie Kondo method and in life in general, that in order to get to a feeling of beauty and that sort of harmony, you have to have the chaos first. And so I say that, because it's just life. And then we see what we have, and then we see where we can be liberated from sort of dusty ways of thinking and doing. So what we're after is not just prettiness, which we are. I mean, that's always a good thing, aesthetic beauty. But we are after the toki meku, the heart and soul charge of, yes, this is life-giving. This feels like it has power and energy to it. And we want to make that available to more people in the community. So let me just say, something that has tremendous power and energy in it is money. You were wondering when I was going to get to it, right? Money is a representation of your life force. You work and it becomes translated into currency. And that means that, every time we spend money, we are giving some of our life force to whatever it is we're buying, which behooves us to pay very close attention to what kind of things we are spending our life force on. And I want to say that in this congregation, one of the places I think that we are cheating ourselves in avoiding opportunities for more toki meku, more of that charge, is that we have allowed people long dead to finance our lives. So what does that say for the psychic vitality of an institution when 11% or so of the operating budget, and that's the nuts and bolts stuff, the salaries and the lights and the snow removal, 11% of our budget is provided by the pledges of the active members. And the other, 90% of what we spend, and a lot of it we give away, which is wonderful, that comes from the dead. Now, I love our ancestors, and I'm not saying they don't have any charge to them or any life force to them in the way that we remember them and honor them. But can we agree that it would be exciting and give us more energy and more life force if we were funding more of our operating expenditures from among the living? That's an important thing for us to really take seriously because it changes the spiritual quality of a church community. And if we funded more of our operating budget from among the living members, what I think all of us would love to see is giving away that fortune that we have inherited. We could give away in bigger and more meaningful ways and have a really bigger impact in the world that we can have and would like to have if we could fund our operating budget from among our living members, if we could put more of our life force as individual members and friends into the operating budget. So I'd like you to think about that. I'd like you to think about that charge that you feel, or should feel. We should all feel it when we get our pledge slips, and I hope you have them with you. If you don't, maybe Bruce and Tom can get us some pledge slips and hand them to people that might not have them. If anybody needs one, please raise your hand. And this is for the fiscal year that starts July 1. So if you made a pledge last year at this time and you haven't fulfilled it, and that I have to fulfill mine too, I forget about it. You can pay online, you can pay by check weekly, you can send it up in a lump sum, but this is for fiscal year July 1. We would like to have really big plans for funding more good causes that are not necessarily all housed within this church. As we prepare this church building to be a center for spiritual life and for soul strengthening, we also would love to be able to say, we're paying our own bills, and we'll be taking in some income from programming and things here, but we could really start to put that endowment to have more impact. And I beg you to consider that as you fill out your pledge form, which I would like to encourage you, if you've already filled it out and it doesn't give you that zing, maybe add a couple zeros, or double it, or add a little bit more if you can. But if you're thinking, well, I'm not really sure, pledge something. Put your life force in with the community.